Hey there everybody, it's Austin Bach, and we're back on Magic Online playing some more Standard, and it is time for us to build Monoblue Mill. It's the deck that multiple people have requested that I play, and I finally caved. It was pretty cheap to put it together, and I wanted to see if I could make the best Fraying Sanity deck that we could. So basically all this deck is trying to do is stay alive and then build the opponent's library. So Fraying Sanity, if you don't know, it essentially doubles the number of mills your opponent does in one turn based on how much they've already milled. But it also stacks on top of each other, so if you have two Fraying Sanities out in play, it can mill for multiples. So like say for example you've got one out and you cast a compelling argument, so that'll cause them to mill 10, but if you have two Fraying Sanities out, the first one will cause them to mill for 10, and then the second one will see that they've milled for 10 total, so it'll mill them for 20. So it's like a 4 times multiplier for the first two copies, an 8 times multiplier for the third. So like if you have multiples of it, it's just insane. So I've sorted into sort of different categories so we can see what's going on. First we have the creatures. Minister of Inquiries can mill a couple, up to 6 cards by itself. Manic Scribe mills 3, and then if you have Delirium it mills for additional as the game goes on. These cards are pretty cheap, they're pretty low impact to put in your deck, but they can just help to sort of chip away at your opponent's library and deal the last few points of damage, quote unquote, once you've got a Fraying Sanity out. We've got a couple counter spells, because we do need to interact with the opponent. We can't just sit around doing nothing. So Censor's nice because it has cycling, so while it is an early disruptive spell, later in the game you can just get rid of it and dig for more ramp spells. And speaking of ramp spells, we've got them all here. 10 in total, which might not seem like a lot, but you actually don't need that many. Once you have Fraying Sanity out, you'll need to cast like 1 or 2 spells to get the opponent dead. This is not a deck that really wants to just fire off ramp spells, or fire off mill spells, just like turn 2 compelling argument. You don't really want to do that because milling, first of all, milling your opponent is not beneficial unless you're, milling their entire deck. So if you like mill them for 5 with compelling argument, and that finds them like, I don't know, an Aftermath card, or it gets them to Delirium or whatever, it's just like not much upside to doing that. So, compelling argument and Vessel are nice because they replace themselves, and Startled Awake is like the combo kill with Fraying Sanity. If you can get 2 Fraying Sanities out and cast a Startled Awake, that's just game over on the spot. Or if you just get 1 Fraying Sanity and 2 Startled Awakes, it's the same deal. So we're fine playing one more expensive mill card that can just end the game on its own. I don't think we're going to be planning around getting the second ability going and trying to get people twice with it, but it can come up, you never know. And then the 4 Fraying Sanity, as I said, obviously, we're never playing less than 4, and it's the card we want most in our opening hand. And then over here we've got some more interaction. 4 Engulf the Shore is really nice in this deck. I believe we have 14 island, which is a pretty good number. It's going to wipe the board most of the time, and it's especially nice for us because not only does it reset our opponent's board, force them to rebuild their offense in order to try to kill us again, it also bounces our own Ministers and Manic Scribes, so we can get additional energy from the Ministers, so we can mill more than 6 with just 1 copy, and get extra value out of the Manic Scribes as well. And then 4 Unquenchable Thirst to round it out. It's just the best cheap removal spell in our colors. We have 9 deserts to take advantage of it, so it's pretty much always going to be a 2-mana Doomblade for whatever problematic creature we need to lock down. So yeah, and then in the sideboard, pretty unsure on the numbers as always, but some counter spells. Crook of Condemnation is better in this deck than usual, or better in the sideboard because we're milling our opponent so much that if they do happen to have some problematic graveyard strategies or synergies that we need to disrupt, this will come in handy. Shielded Aether Thief against aggressive strategies. It also makes some energy, which is nice for the Minister, so it's just a nice blocker. It's unlikely it'll be able to draw us many cards, but you never know. And then we've got a creature package of Nimble Obstructionist and Curator of Mysteries, and I like these a lot because first of all, a lot of opponents are going to be siding out the removal against us, having seen just like no offensive threats and just Fraying Sanity to kill, so they might be just bringing in like counter spells or other ways to disrupt us, and then we can catch them off guard by playing, multiple big flyers. And both of them have cycling, so even if we're playing a game where we're not going to be able to race and we're just looking to get the mill win anyway, we can just cycle and continue going along with our normal game plan, so no harm, no foul. But yeah, pretty excited to try this deck out. I know a lot of you have been wanting to see it, so let's waste no more time and go into round 1.